I haven't spoken on this at
Can we just clear up?
Let's get
Your Worship, on the Crown, I mean, the Crown Law Office, the client of the Crown Law Office is the Crown, not the Council. So we would be...
I'll write to the Crown Law Office then.
Okay, I think if Councillor Lee has volunteered to do that separately, let's do it that way. We've got a resolution in front of us. I want to put the...
If you were responsible, Mr Mayor, you would write to the Crown Law Office.
Yeah,
This is very important.
Councillor, can I please ask you to observe the standing orders? I've warned you several times today. I don't want to have to do it again and ask you to leave. We have a resolution in front of us. I want to put that resolution at this stage. It's changing as is that the final version we've got? The change, agree to approve the encumbrance agreement as supported by the majority of the Working Party meeting on the 15th of December 2016. That closes the circle. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. To the contrary?
16.
Division.
Okay, a division is called for. Let's take a division vote on it.
Compromise to help? You know,
I think we'll just take. I just think we'll take the vote at this
just
point.
take the vote.
Okay.
By division, councillors. Mayor Goff.
In favour.
Councillor Casey.
No.
Deputy Mayor Cashmore.
Yes.
Councillor Collins.
Yes.
Councillor Cooper.
Yes.
Councillor Darby.
Or
Councillor Philippina.
Aye.
Councillor Hills.
Yes, please.
Councillor Hulse.
Aye.
Councillor Mike Lee.
No.
Councillor Newman.
Plant some trees, Daniel. Thank you.
Councillor Quacks.
Or
Councillor Sayers.
no.
Councillor Simpson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wayne Walker.
No.
Councillor Watson.
No.
You're the Greenies. The Greenies, I know.
Oh.
It's very consistent.
I'm supporting.
Okay, the motion is carried by 12 votes to 5. Can I now bring us to agenda item 13 and ask Warwick McNaughton to come to the table, please. So would you like to make any comments to begin with?
Just to note that this is really a procedural formality. Your Worship, you have the power to establish committees. Part of the process of making that happen is for the governing body to note what you have agreed to and to confirm that any powers that need to be delegated are delegated.
I'll move.
Thanks.
So move.
It's been moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Stewart. As you see, it is a noting paper. It is within my power to do that. It is about appointing 2 councillors and it's about clarification on a couple of points. They're largely technical. Are there any questions to Warwick McNaughton? Councillor Stewart?
Well, it could be a question to Warwick, but it's probably a question to you. Councillor Casey has told me that she would like to be on it, and I've agreed that if you're happy with it, for the civil defence, I'm happy with that.
Oh, this is the other.
Yeah, look, I've got no particular objection to it, but I would rather have had notice and discussion about it. Can we consider that subsequently?
Yesterday afternoon, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's just if we take amendments from the floor, it does make it more difficult.
Leave it until another time.
Yeah, we can do that subsequently.
You're reviewing them in a year's time, aren't you, Your Worship?
We're doing that as well, but it's just I think it's a bad precedent if I get amendments from the floor, because that won't be the first or the last. It'll keep going. Councillor Philippina.
Thank you, Your Worship. And it's just sort of any amendments to the terms of reference, because obviously in the next few months there'll be some changes possibly around the delegations across the committee. So I'm assuming, Your Worship, that if there are going to be any changes, that it'll come back to governing body again, just to sort of be noted?
Yeah, no, absolutely. While it's within my authority, it's important that you're aware of the decision and have the opportunity to ask questions about it. So that's the way we'll do it. If there's no other questions or debate on it, I'll put the recommendation that we note the amendments and confirm the delegation of powers and duties. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried. Councillors, we now come to item number 15, and can I ask Mark Maloney to come to the table, please? This is in relation to the Audit and Risk Committee, and this does not deal, if I can just point out to councillors, this doesn't deal with the question of those who might be appointed to it. That will be dealt with in committee in a few moments. So if we can have Mark Maloney, if you've got any comments you'd like to make.
Thank you, Your Worship. As Your Worship says in the confidential part of this meeting, the governing body will consider recommendations as to the appointment of 2 external co-opted members to the Audit and Risk Committee. This paper simply sets briefly out the process. In March of this year, the Audit and Risk Committee, or the governing body, received a report from the Audit and Risk Committee outlining recommendations that effectively implemented a refreshed terms of reference and included changes to the composition of that committee. The governing body at that stage resolved to the incoming mayor and governing body that those recommendations be included in the refreshed refreshed committee terms of reference, which they have been. So we've now got to the situation this afternoon. We'll be putting forward recommendations as to the appointment of those 2 independent members.
Thank you very much. Now I'll move formally that we accept the recommendation to note this. Have I a seconder for that? Councillor Collins. Are there any questions? Councillor Casey.
Can you just remind me how many councillors are on that committee?
It's 3 each, isn't it?
It's three each. Yep.
That's a product of a recommendation to the incoming mayor and council. No other questions? Are there any debate? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Carried. Making good progress. Item number 16, the last before we go into committee, is the report back from the C40 Mayor's Summit in Mexico City. And could I ask John Morrow to come to the table, please? John, you've got...
We've got a double act.
A double act. Why don't we get Councillor Holst down the back? They were both our representatives at the committee, and it's good that we're getting a report back. I think you've got an overhead to show us, have you? Or?
We do, indeed.
Okay. So can I invite Councillor Holst to lead off?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I know everyone's kind of exhausted and this is probably the last thing you want to do, but we undertook to report back as soon as we could and we're doing it. So just very briefly, and John will speak to most of the slides, as you know, we on your behalf went to the C40 meeting in Mexico City, and the Auckland taxpayers, ratepayers union have been quick off the mark and have legoimed it. I just remind people this was mostly at the very kind expense of C40. I'm just going to hand over to John to go through some of the slides, and then we'll tag team it from there.
Thank you very much. John Morrow.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors. Just quick overview of this. I could probably condense this, but this has actually been to ADC before. You voted in favour of putting our membership forward. So this is really just unfolding our relationship with C40 over the past year. The members are up there you can look at, and the summit comes around every 2 years, and that's what we went to. Just a quick review of the benefits. I can kind of sum this up in 2 things. One, there's free kit that we get from C40 to deliver on basically what we've already promised in our long-term strategic direction. And then the second thing is a platform for recognition and for influence. There's a variety of networks, and you don't need to strain your eyes to see, but it's basically the core function, a lot of its core functions that we deliver as council. Things like transport, things like waste, things like water. There are networks for us to learn best practices from other cities with similar challenges to ours to up our game. Yep.
So the main topics you can see up there, but just a very brief summary. The key topic of the 3 days in Mexico focused on the relationship between climate change activism and social equity activism. And by that I mean it's all very well for us to be deep and meaningful about climate change, but unless we bring our communities with us and our communities see actual benefit from this work being done, it will be in vain. And this was absolutely clearly stated by the new chair of C40, the Mayor of Paris, Mayor Hidalgo. In listening to the mayors involved, the London, New York, Amsterdam, Paris, Joburg, Portland, Guangzhou, Sydney, all of these mayors are standing firmly in support of these C40 goals, and no one stronger than our American-based mayors who made it absolutely clear that despite the election results, I think they were all a little bit post-traumatic when they arrived at C40 in Mexico, cities are actually the building blocks of a climate-safe future. So on to some of the people who were there. Obviously, Michael Bloomberg, who is the initiator of C40 and the dynamic ex-mayor of New York, and many others. The reality is that 77 million people worldwide will be forced into poverty directly due to climate change by 2050. And with 55 billion people who will be living in cities by that time, the vulnerability to climate change is huge, and we cannot ignore that. We just note some of the key accomplishments that are there, and I have to say, and just want to acknowledge John Mora, who was with me. The networks that John has are extraordinary, so we were able to use all the time between all of the meetings and workshops to meet with people. Looking at some of the key accomplishments, and again, they're up there, we do need to acknowledge the extraordinary work that we can borrow from that's actually being done by other cities, like Copenhagen, who will be carbon neutral by 2025, Sydney, who've actually reduced their carbon footprint by 70%, and we're certainly going to be working with Sydney as our closest neighbour on these issues. The collaboration is critical, and we were invited for several reasons to attend C40, not the least of which being to present on our waste initiatives, which were received well, and I presented along with London, Amsterdam and Rotterdam and the City of Austin, and explained to the mayors around the world what we were doing, and it was very well received. We've got some excellent networks overseas, lots of mayors who've been friends for a long time, and again, an excellent chance for John to network with his sustainability, senior sustainability staff from around the world. And just final slide from me, we certainly received a lot of accolades, and Auckland was a commended finalist in two sections. Number one, for the way that we treat waste, and secondly, for the sustainable redevelopment of the waterfront. And when you look at who we were up against, it's no mean feat. These are some of the best cities in the world that we're footing it with.
Great, and those are some of the cities that won those awards in all those categories. We were a finalist in both of them, as Penny's saying. So just a few final slides here. It's pretty safe to say that things shifted at this conference, and the world took it as an opportunity, at least the mayors of the world took it as an opportunity to launch particularly innovative and inspiring work in the realm of climate. And just a few things that came out of that, and of course you could just scan here, but C40's own reporting out saying the next 4 years really is a critical period of time to embed and really make progress on some of this stuff. But of course mayors like the London mayor saying we're going to spend a considerable amount on cycling, not because it's an ideological thing, but because it's a pretty efficient way of moving people around our city. World mayors coming together and saying that we need a significant investment in green infrastructure. The U.S. mayors, as Councillor Hall said, coming together and saying that we will continue to lead in this space. The World Bank jumping in, Vancouver's mayor saying some pretty inspiring things, and so on. So this conference every 2 years is an opportunity for the world leaders in climate at a local level to really tout their wares and to take a pretty significant leadership opportunity. What we've done here, is this you, or do you want me? I guess 5 quick takeaways, and I'll just kind of buzz through this here. If it wasn't clear when we started, really cities are increasingly a powerful voice in this arena, as mayors who attended this can attest to, I think. In less than a year, I think it was just about a year ago, we were asked to join C40, and we're members. Over that year, we've done quite a few things to translate those into benefits for Aucklanders and Auckland Council. The network, I think, is probably just as strong as its weakest link. And to me, that's saying that people are depending on us for action, not only Aucklanders, but actually the rest of the network to make aggressive action and make things happen. We stand, luckily, to benefit from the co-benefits there. It's not just doing this climate change thing. These are the things we need for our city to make it matter for people, for the social benefits that Councillor Hulse is talking about, to transport and housing choice that we're all quite focused on. And then, like I said earlier, the next 4 years are quite critical to delivering on that long-term success. So bringing it back to Auckland real briefly, we also this past week, launched our second annual report on what we're doing in this space with low carbon. A few key highlights are up on the screen there. You'll notice that a lot of it has to do with transport. That really is our biggest carbon impact in Auckland, and actually where we stand to make the most gains. So you can flick through that at your leisure to get a sense of our own story and what we're doing in that space. And in terms of next steps with C40, you can come visit us on level 22. We put together a little informal innovation hub where we are working across Auckland Council family and CCOs to advance this work with the networks. Dean will be visiting Dubai on behalf of C40's kind support to join an adaptation network to talk about green infrastructure and adaptation. And then we've been honored to host a network here in Auckland at the expense of C40. About 15 global leaders are coming here to Auckland in March to participate in what we're organizing over the course of the week.